The old cabin stood nestled amidst towering pines, a silent sentinel against the relentless march of time. Tom cherished this sanctuary, a place where memories of his grandfather lingered like the scent of wood smoke. Each creaking floorboard, each weathered beam whispered tales of laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the icy grip of the approaching winter. Tom had spent countless hours here with his grandfather, listening to his stories, learning the ways of the woods. The cabin was more than just a retreat, it was a repository of shared moments, a testament to an unbreakable bond. Tom stoked the fire, its warm glow chasing away the encroaching shadows. A sense of peace settled over him as he gazed at the familiar surroundings. The worn leather of his grandfather's favorite armchair, the faded photographs adorning the mantelpiece, all held a comforting familiarity. Here, in the heart of the wilderness, Tom felt closest to his grandfather's spirit. He could almost hear his gruff laughter echoing through the rafters, see the twinkle in his eyes as he recounted tales of daring adventures and narrow escapes. Outside, the wind howled like a banshee, its mournful cry a harbinger of the approaching storm. Snow began to fall, each flake a tiny messenger of winter's icy embrace. The wind rattled the windows, testing their resilience against the onslaught of the elements. Tom drew the curtains, shutting out the encroaching darkness, yet the storm's fury seemed to seep through the very walls, chilling him to the bone. He added another log to the fire, the crackling flames offering a semblance of warmth and security against the growing tempest outside. As the storm raged on, Tom settled into his grandfather's armchair, a well-worn book in hand. The wind howled its mournful song, a constant reminder of the isolation that enveloped him. Yet, he felt a strange sense of comfort, as if his grandfather's presence lingered in the very air he breathed. He could almost hear his voice, filled with wisdom and warmth, sharing stories of bygone days. The cabin, once a place of shared joy, now held a bittersweet solitude, a poignant reminder of the irreplaceable bond he had lost. The storm reached its crescendo, a symphony of wind and snow that enveloped the cabin in a deafening roar. Trees swayed violently, their branches clawing at the sky as if in protest against the onslaught. Tom closed his book, unable to concentrate amidst the cacophony. The power lines, already strained by the weight of the accumulating snow, snapped with a loud crack, plunging the cabin into darkness. An unsettling silence descended, broken only by the relentless howling of the wind. Tom fumbled for a lantern, his pulse quickening with a primal fear he couldn't quite place. The silence was unnerving, amplifying every creak and groan of the old cabin. It was as if the storm had swallowed even the sounds of the wilderness, leaving behind an eerie vacuum. He lit the lantern, its flickering flame casting dancing shadows on the walls, amplifying the sense of unease that had settled over him. Each gust of wind seemed to whisper secrets against the window panes, stories the storm had carried from distant, unknown realms. The isolation, once a source of comfort, now felt oppressive, closing in on him like the walls of a tomb. The familiar scent of wood smoke and pine needles was overwhelmed by a damp, earthy odor, as if the very foundations of the cabin were being tested by unseen forces. Hours crawled by, each one stretching into an eternity. The storm showed no signs of abating, its fury relentless, its grip on the cabin absolute. Tom paced the confines of the small dwelling, his unease growing with each passing moment. He tried to rationalize his fear, attributing it to the isolation and the storm's intensity, yet deep down a primal instinct whispered that something was amiss, that he was not alone in the isolated cabin. A sharp rap on the front door sliced through the silence, jolting Tom from his restless pacing. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest. Who could possibly be out in this weather in the dead of night? He cautiously approached the door, his hand hovering over the latch. The knocking came again, more insistent this time, echoing through the silent cabin like a death knell. Holding his breath, Tom slowly opened the door, the lantern held high. The wind howled in fury, flinging snow into the cabin, but there was no one there. He peered into the swirling whiteness, but the storm had reduced visibility to mere feet. The only sign of life was the relentless dance of the snowflakes, illuminated by the flickering lantern light. He closed the door quickly, his mind racing. Had it been the wind playing tricks on him, or was there something more to the insistent knocking? He tried to dismiss it as a figment of his overactive imagination, a product of the isolation and the storm's unnerving silence. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been sown, a chilling premonition that refused to be silenced. As he turned away from the door, he could have sworn he heard a faint whisper, carried on the wind, a sound that seemed to come from right beside his ear. It was a low, guttural whisper, barely audible above the storm's fury, yet it sent shivers crawling down his spine. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end, and he spun around, his heart pounding against his ribs, but the cabin was empty. Had he imagined it? Or was there something truly sinister lurking in the shadows, toying with his sanity? The knocking returned, this time from the back of the cabin near his grandfather's old workshop. Tom's grip tightened on the lantern, his knuckles turning white. He moved cautiously, his every sense on high alert. The floorboards creaked under his weight, each sound amplified in the eerie silence that followed the storm's initial onslaught. Shadows danced menacingly on the walls, fueled by the flickering lantern light, taking on grotesque and menacing forms. He reached the workshop door, its paint peeling, the wood warped with age. Taking a deep breath, he pushed it open, the hinges groaning in protest as if reluctant to reveal the secrets hidden within. The lantern light illuminated a jumble of tools and half-finished projects, remnants of his grandfather's handiwork. The air was thick with the scent of sawdust and varnish, a familiar and comforting aroma that did little to quell the unease gnawing at his insides. The knocking came again, louder this time, seeming to emanate from the far corner of the workshop where his grandfather's old tool chest sat, its lid slightly ajar. Tom approached cautiously, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for the chest. He had spent countless hours as a child rummaging through its contents, marveling at the intricate tools and listening to his grandfather's stories about each one. As he reached for the chest, a sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, extinguishing the lantern and plunging the workshop into darkness. A cold dread washed over him, as palpable as the icy air that seeped in through the cracks in the walls. He fumbled for his lighter, his heart pounding in his ears, the darkness pressing down on him like a physical weight. The knocking resumed, more insistent, more urgent, seeming to come from right behind him.